Yeah, man, it's all God versus fallen angels, dude. And it's like you and I can have that conversation, and people will be like, "Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I totally agree." But in Hollywood, I might as well just be speaking Chinese with these people. They have no clue what they're getting into, and this is the game, and this is what happens. And eventually, you have to, pay your dues, meaning that there's going to come a time where you have to go forward and talk about all the witchcraft that you're into. Taylor Swift again calls her fans witches. She has a black cube that she's on. I mean, she has these weird kind of ceremonies on stage, and it gets down to, Kurt Metzger talked about this in a weird way too, because I do believe they worship the fallen. I really do believe at the highest levels of power, that is what is worshipped. If you ask me, based on all my research, fallen angels versus God. I mean, have you watched these videos, dude, where these chicks, they go from looking like they're like lot lizards to like the most gorgeous human being on the planet just by putting on makeup, and then you realize like that's what part of the sorcery that was given to him by fallen angels, dude. And you start seeing it everywhere. You start seeing programming, television. That's all it is. Everything is about trying to manipulate you.
I've worn my Martha Stewart super heterosexual summer living line shirt for Sam Tripoli. And if you don't know Sam Tripoli, then I don't know where you've been. He's one of the coolest stand-up comedians out there. He's got multiple podcasts. He's got more podcasts than he does freaking social media profiles. Dude, I can't even keep up. I'm trying to find Sam Tripoli. There's like 50 Sam Tripolis, dude. Which one's the real you, dude?
Who knows,
What's up, man? How you doing?
Who knows, bro? How are you, Jay Dyer? Like, Jay, I swear, like, look at your background and how amazing it is. I attempted that at one point, and my background has been just annihilated by my daughters. They love books. They love to chew on my books. So I get these very deep, sometimes expensive books, and then they just gnaw on them like beaver. So I want to have a background like Jay Dyer. That's why I'm like, oh, I could do it like this. And look what I got. It looks like a bad garage sale.
Thanks, man. Well, this is all my beaver section. So this is all beaver studies right here. Beaver studies department of the library.
All right, look good, buddy.
Sam, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I want to get into entertainment. You're one of the best stand-ups out there. I love your stuff. Been on your show many, many times. And you seem to have one of the best takes when it comes to entertainment. I mean, you always nail it. You don't go with like the surface level stuff that's going on. So let's talk about the Taylor Swift psyop first. Do you think that it is a kind of a psyop that was going on with the soap opera drama with her and Travis? What's your analysis of all that?
Well, what's really crazy about that is like everything that conspiracy theorists said were going to happen literally happened. Like it literally happened. Exactly how we said it was going to happen. Even to the point where the 49ers made the wrong decision in the overtime to allow Patrick Mahomes to have the ball last, which was not a good idea. So that even worked out. Then them coming and making out in the middle of the field after the championship, that happened. And then the ratings being at like 7 million more than any other Super Bowl ever, being the most watched television show of all time. So yeah, I do think something's up. Now, my biggest problem with all this is, like, to be honest with you, I mean, Taylor Swift is what Taylor Swift is. I have 2 of her songs in my workout play. Like when I really got to push it and I'm going for, to put up the 45s on the bench, I'll put in Bad Blood or something like that. So I'm not going to lie to you. Okay. But here's the thing, dude. Everyone knows that sports is bread and circus. My issue right now with where sports is going is like we don't even get the bread and circus anymore. Now we still get the propaganda going on during that, so we don't even get that break, that kind of like smoke screen for what's really going on. So do I believe that the Taylor Swift Travis Kelce relationship isn't real? 100%. If you look at his ex-girlfriends, he loves futuristic hot black women. That tends to be the chicks he's into. And now he's dating a chick who has the vibe, the sexual energy of a 4x4. So it is what it is. I don't have any ill will towards her, but it just sucks that we can't even have these, like, I still watch ESPN. I'm old. I still watch ESPN. And, Patrick McAfee's on there and he's got a great show. And the best, and he's getting some flack about his ratings. I think his show's great. I don't know, but it's hard to get good ratings when you're forced to talk about Iowa women's basketball for 5 minutes, and your whole crew has to act like they're enthralled with this storyline about this woman spending more money, scoring more points than ever, and then you follow it with a funny story about out of Houston, C.J. Stroud making fun of these old NFL players, and the energy just shifts. It just totally shifts from what guys really want to hear to what we're forced to hear. And that's what I'm talking about. The bread and circus, like it's just gone now because we don't watch any of their programming anymore. Now they've infiltrated sports and they've ruined that as well.
Yeah. Did you see the clip where NATO was talking about batting around the idea of using Taylor Swift as a PSYOP disinformation tool? I don't know if you saw that. It was going around. It was an actual NATO meeting. And to me, that suggests that, pop stars oftentimes, especially at that mega level, they can often be co-opted for, political purposes beyond even NATO or some kind of PSYOP thing. We know that, famous pop stars in the past, Elvis, people like that, they've been used by the deep state at various levels to push agendas. I mean, do you think that's out of the realm of possibility here? We know that at the least, she's basically telling everybody to vote for Bobo, Joe Biden, right? I mean, the DNC usually likes to pull in these pop stars. What do you think about that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like nothing about Taylor Swift is authentic, right? Like even her origin story, her father had to buy the record label to get her on the record label. And so the whole thing is just at some point, somebody made a deal with somebody and they just mega blew her up. If you look at old Taylor Swift versus new Taylor Swift, it's not the same kind of energy. And I guess we all grow, but it's definitely got darker energy. If you see, she has a lot of references to witches now and all that stuff. So, we just did a episode on Tinfoil Hat about Marilyn Monroe and like the darkness behind her. I don't think people really understand how dark Marilyn Monroe's life really was and how she was basically, foster care and then somehow just became honestly, one of the most powerful people in the world with all the men she was betting. So that's what they use. You talk about all the time, MK Ultra, kittens being used to basically control men. And if you look at like who Marilyn Monroe was hooking up with, it was all of both the Kennedys, Frank Sinatra, the head of the mob, and then some Russian spy, and that was the end. So Taylor Swift is going to be no different than that. Why would she? I mean, how big she isn't authentic. That's how you know. To get to that level is not really authentic. And we saw her with Ice Spice, who's the queen of the Downs, okay? And her throwing all the satanic symbolism right there. It's right there. And I think that's why the commercial with the Jesus and the feet got such a poor reception, because Christians are already, in their, the defense stance, waiting for all the demonic imagery to come at them. And it ended up making that commercial not be received very well. So yes, it's all crazy. I mean, it's all crazy. Everything we thought was going to happen at this Super Bowl ended up happening.
Yeah, I heard Ice Spice. I thought that's the Spice Girls. Who is this? I didn't even realize she's a
bro.
Yeah, she's a Ronald McDonald looking short bus rapper, right? Like she literally looks like. He looks like Lilu, like multipass, but like mixed with Ronald McDonald.
And her whole thing is twerking and showing you her portals, and that's really what she does. And it's idiocracy times 1,000. And I don't have anything against her as a person, but what she represents is, and we've been talking about this in the conspiracy world forever, is about how like gangster rap was completely co-opted by the CIA, and then lo and behold, who comes out and says, Ice Cube says that, they basically co-opted it. And here we got Ice Spice just throwing out the worst of the worst. I mean, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, I want to talk about Ice Cube and the stories that have come out relating to Diddy, stuff like that, because that's actually really relevant to the control of the entertainment world. But on that point about Marilyn Monroe, I'm glad you mentioned that. I did a podcast recently with Sammy the Bull Gravano, the most famous living gangster hitman under John Gotti, and he actually backs up what you said as well, Sam. He said although he wasn't involved in the actual planning, I heard some things We had to take care of her. She might talk. I mean, literally
Yeah.
says, yeah, we had to make that decision because she was being used as a kind of honeypot for multiple people. She was basically a honey thought for like 4 different groups: the government, the mob, CIA. Everybody was using her, and so they had to get rid of her. So I think you're spot on with Marilyn Monroe there as an example. I got a question for you though. Now I didn't see this until like a couple days ago, but you got confronted by one of the top Hollywood witches' boyfriend at your comedy event. Machine Gun Kelly showed up and kind of gave you a little bit of sass. He got sassy with it. Now I'm bringing that up because Megan Fox had that interview not too long ago that went somewhat viral, where she was talking about drinking blood, and this is actually part of her and Machine Gun Kelly's ritual. So I don't know if you saw that clip, but this seems like something that's actually also going on in the high levels of entertainment. If you remember back in the day, Alex used to play this clip all the time of Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton talking about drinking each other's blood. So there's actually something to this too.
Yeah, man, it's all God versus fallen angels, dude. And it's like you and I can have that conversation, and people will be like, "Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I totally agree." But in Hollywood, I might as well just be speaking Chinese with these people. They have no clue what they're getting into, and this is the game, and this is what happens. And eventually, you have to, pay your dues, meaning that there's going to come a time where you have to go forward and talk about all the witchcraft that you're into. Taylor Swift, again, calls her fans witches. She has a black cube that she's on. I mean, she has these weird kind of ceremonies on stage. And it gets down to, Kurt Metzger talked about this in a weird way too, because I do believe they worship the fallen. I really do believe at the highest levels of power, that is what is worshipped. If you ask me, based on all my research, fallen angels versus God. I mean, have you watched these videos, dude, where these chicks, they go from looking like they're like lot lizards to like the most gorgeous human being on the planet just by putting on makeup? And then you realize like that's what part of the sorcery that was given to him by fallen angels, dude. And you start seeing it everywhere. You start seeing programming, television. That's all it is. Everything is about trying to manipulate you and brainwash you. And so right now what's going on in Hollywood is that everyone's like, oh my God, Hollywood's losing money. They don't care about losing money. They don't care because the Federal Reserve comes in, they'll make up a fake event, and they'll clean up all the red with a bailout. That's just the way it goes. The Federal Reserve is what is the center of behind all problems. But the problem they're having now is that nobody's watching their product. You can't brainwash somebody if nobody's watching it. And that's why I think, why do they bring back Jon Stewart back to the Daily Show? Because he's from the glory days. So they're making this attempt to lure us back in to watch their really, really dark stuff. And it's all dark. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. It's just unbelievable to me. We're in this cultural Marxism movement that is at its deepest roots about dark arts and fallen angels. And yeah, that's what happens. I believe in all of it.
Yeah, I was watching a bunch of videos from even Vice magazine, which is no good, but they had a guy that they were interviewing from Hollywood he works in a lot of high-end hotels, basically the really elite hotels, and he was giving an undercover interview saying that all the stuff you see in Eyes Wide Shut is actually real, that zillionaires will basically rent out the hotels. It's a giant ORGY. And I bring that up because I'm not trying to get too controversial here, but Cat Williams did a recent interview that went mega viral. I think it had it's up to 60, 70 million views now. And particularly on the notion of blackmail in Hollywood, he talked about this idea that even some of the entertainers he alleges, P. Diddy, there's a lot of people in Hollywood that's doing stuff you wouldn't believe, okay? And they trying to get up inside of you with rituals. Okay, he says rituals. He says that they're, trying to blackmail people. And he alleges people like P. Diddy might have been doing this kind of stuff. That's been alleged on the internet for a long time. I don't know if you saw that interview, but did you have any take on that in terms of particularly the topics of a lot of entertainers in the black entertainment scene being compromised?
Well, like I was hanging out in Austin at a comedy club, and a comedian asked me why is Barack Obama suddenly being outed as gay, and I go, it's all a demoralization campaign. We are in the biggest demoralization campaign. So what do, man? How do you demoralize somebody? You position people of power. We blackmail them through whatever weird kinky sex they're into, and you use that to control them. And they in turn use that to control others. And that, I say this all the time. Pedophilia is the gateway, the ritual, to the highest levels of power. That's how you do it. You control people through their sexual, whatever weird stuff they're into, and that's how you get them to do what you want them to do. So, do I believe that Hollywood is corrupted like that? 100%, 100%. And they also promote, people that they know are shady to eventually out them as shady to demoralize us later on. When you worship somebody and love them as a fan, and then you find out everything about them was a lie, that is demoralization. Your anxiety goes up, your depression goes up. So that's the whole game right there. It is a demoralization campaign like we've probably never seen since the Bolshevik War.
Yeah, you had a guest. Yeah, you had a good guest on. You were talking about psyops and mass media psyops and disinformation campaigns and how they really want to demoralize us through all of these public rituals. I mean, do you think that that's crazy, the idea that the Super Bowl itself is a high-profile ritual? I know we've talked about that a lot, but it's good to revisit this stuff because it used to be we would get these kind of big satanic / Masonic ceremonies at the Super Bowl with Pink or with Lady Gaga. Katy Perry comes out riding the beast, like the whore rides the beast in the book of Revelation. Is that far-fetched, though, that there would be actual planning to make the ceremonies high-profile rituals?
No, I mean, if you study Lady Gaga, I think she was either the halftime show. I mean, I think it was in Dallas Stadium. She starts off in the heavens, and then she descends down, which is the story of Lucifer, descends down to the lowest levels, and she's surrounded by pentagrams, and everyone's just like, oh, this is such an entertaining Super Bowl show. And it's just like, dude, that's the story of Lucifer. Like, right there. And that's why I do, because they have the most eyeballs. It's the best way to affect you. It's the best way to brainwash you. And then what they get you to do is just to open up. Yeah, look at this. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And you tell a normie that. And by the way, look at her. She's got the panda eyes, the famous panda eyes. If you look at that, Bowie, the very.
Yeah, she looks like David Bowie's gonna descend.
Yeah, right? And she's some weird stuff happens there. And then she's going to end up like, it's the crazy, it gets dark. And then she does this kind of thing where she jumps. And it's like, I'm watching this going, this is really weird. And this is when I started going, oh, dude, there's something to this. And if you study Gaga, if you understand who Gaga is Pluto, and he is the messenger for Saturn. And here it is, Lucifer descending from heaven, down to hell. Here we go, which looks like some weird itsy bitsy spider, right? It's so weird. And then you start to look around her, and it is nothing but pentagrams. And then the way that they light the audience, it's all red, looking like flames. And listen, man, I grew up. I was one of those people, the generation Xers who saw all the Roman Catholic Church stuff that was with, the priest and the pedophilia, and it made me disconnect from God, which I think was a giant part of why they did that. If they do it in Hollywood, they do it in Washington, D.C. Why wouldn't they do it at levels of power, put corruptible people in that they eventually out once they've served their use and make you demoralize you? And I have friends of mine that I know have real problems with God because of things they've happened, but also that giant pedophile scandal that's happened over decades. And here we go. So the very interesting thing is, like, when we look at all this satanic symbolism in Lady Gaga stuff, and we bring it up here on this show, we have people who have eager ears and want to hear it. But you bring it up to everybody else, they start talking about satanic panic. They're like, "Oh, dude, satanic panic." And what they don't understand is that was done on purpose for when they would start getting more and more bold with what they're doing today. So that's why they create satanic panic. They tell you all this, just a bunch of cuckoo crazy Christians going nuts, trying to find a reason to get upset. And reality, all that stuff was real. It all really happened. It was just a giant psyop ran on us so that today they could use that as an excuse not to believe what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, well, a couple people that really promoted the satanic panic were Geraldo and Oprah. If you remember, Oprah would have a lot of people on that were both kooky and real Satanists. Like, she had Michael Aquino on back in the day, which he actually was a Satanist, and the stuff that he was involved in was legit Satanism. So they would have the real stuff, and then they would like bring in this kooky, crazy stuff on purpose to make it look crazy. I think to cover for the real stuff that was actually going on even in the 80s. And I think
100%.
Yeah.
And like, dude, I get into this thing where it's like, for me at the darkest levels, I think it's like Moloch worship and Black Cube. They might be all the same. Kronos, that might be the same person. But they created this thing called Satanism, right? And Satan exists, but like the form of Satanism, which I believe this is pushing, is meant to like just get like goth guys who want to hook up with, fat, like Dungeons and Dragon dudes who just want to hook up with fat goth chicks, and just something cool that cool down at when they go and watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So like, you look at this guy's eyebrows, he's obviously a LARP. And I'm not saying he doesn't participate in it. Like, he obviously did, if you know his history. It's very dark, but it's being presented as this kind of cosplay weirdo thing that will piss off your parents. And, but once you start to get into that, you start to see darker and darker and darker, and it gets really bad for you because you're going against God. And that's my honest belief.
Yeah, in the case of Aquino, I mean, he had, quite a few books detailing what to actually do to practice real Satanism, and was involved in quite a few scandals. The Presidio scandal, where he was investigated for abuse. So, I mean, there was a lot going on beyond just the external, costume LARP sphere, like Anton LaVey. And I mean, Aquino wanted to make it more serious. He thought LaVey was too cartoonish. So, again, there's people that really, and he was writing high level psyops papers for the military in terms of their doctrine of psychological warfare. So he's not some goofball, even though he looks like a goofball. He actually looks like Bela Lugosi or something. Like, he looks silly. Not LaVey, but I'm talking about Aquino. But no, they were really engaging in this. In fact, he was even alleged to have been connected to the Franklin cover-up, the case of Paul Bonacci, famous abuse victims related to the Franklin cover-up. So you had Nick Bryant on. I had an interview with Nick Bryant recently. So this as well, that there's a close connection between these models of what you see with Franklin cover-up, with Epstein, and as well as what we're talking about in the broader sphere of the rest of entertainment and the Roman Catholic Church. We talked about this being institutional capture a few interviews back. What do you think about that? Is that what's going on here? They're capturing the institution so that they control everybody in society in general?
I mean, you could look at all the Abrahamic religions, and there seems to be this influx now of dark arts, symbolism. I mean, whether it's Mecca going around the Black Cube, the question of the Star of David, where's it come from? What is it actually? And then everything involved with I know you're Roman Catholic, and I respect Catholics. There's something about the Vatican that's just as creepy, man.
I'm not.
I thought you were. Oh, well, no. You're Orthodox. Yeah.
Hold that thought. We'll talk that right when we get back. I mean, I can't even.
It just keeps going. I'm a crazy person.
The rest of the segment.
I'm a crazy person.
No, I'm kidding. Head on over to samtripoli.com. You can follow him on all the social media outlets. Sam, I know you've got some dates coming up, stand-up wise, in terms of Bakersfield. You want to tell us about those dates?
Yes, I'm going to be with the legendary Brian Callen next weekend in Bakersfield and in Huntington Beach. And then I'm proud to announce my new special, Quiet, is being filmed March 3rd. That's right, March 3rd at the Bourbon Room in LA. Grab tickets now. All tickets, all the money from the tickets go to produce a special. I'm not making any money off it. So I just want to put out a great special. I got an hour of power. And then I just want you, if you get a chance, check out my new Rumble show. It's called Doom Scrolling. And I basically break down the best conspiracy videos from YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. So I love doing the show. We've gotten some huge numbers, and I'm very blessed.
And I want to remind everybody too that
am I too serious on the show, Jay? Am I being too serious? Am I being too serious? Should I be wackier?
Well, you are a comedian, so that's up to your professional purview. You can decide how you want to be. You can identify as whatever you want to identify as, Sam.
I love that. I love that. That's great, dude. I'm going to identify as successful. Can I do that? Am I allowed? Hello?
Okay. I'm going to identify as Sam Tripoli. What do you think of that?
No, dude, do it. Good luck with it. Enjoy it. It's like when somebody tries to steal your credit. You're like, oh, dude, you want this credit? Enjoy it.
Go. I do impersonate you a lot, though, so I don't know if you know that. But
dude, I've never heard impersonation of me. Please, can I see it? Please, God.
I'll do it later.
Give me that.
I'll do it later. Look.
Okay,
we got to get back to
the big send off.
I want to remind everybody that I will be live as well in Hollywood, March 15th with the great Jamie Kennedy. We'll be doing a 5-hour event. Jamie will be the headliner, doing some stand-up. I will be doing a bit of stand-up myself, which is a lot of impressions. My wife, Jamie Hanshaw, not Kennedy, will be doing a talk on Hollywood occultism. I'll be doing a talk on geopolitics and conspiracy. So it's a big 5-hour event. Go get your tickets at the top of my Twitter. It's pinned at the top. It's the Jamie Kennedy event. So that's going to be March 15th. Please remember, get those tickets, guys. And go check out, by the way, Sam's podcast. Again, I've gone pretty deep. He goes deep, homeboy. I've gone deep on a lot of broken Sims, a lot of tinfoil hats. I mean, there's a lot of great information there. We were talking about before the break this idea of institutional capture, compromising people at the top. Sam accused me of being a pedophile Roman Catholic. I said, no way, dude.
I forgot.
I'm an Orthodox. That's okay. We don't believe in the Roman Catholic papal stuff, but that's okay. Look, we've seen the Pope get co-opted. I mean, the Pope's out here basically saying all of Klaus Schwab's lines about the New World Order. We just had the World Government Summit that met this week. A couple weeks ago, it was Davos, same stuff. A World Government Summit just has a little bit more of a Muslim Arabic, kebab flavor to it than Davos. Why are they coming out, Sam, in full just disclosure, telling us everything about? Yeah, okay, there's a push for a world government. So what? If you don't like it, you're a bigot.
Because they've been waiting for this forever, and the time is now, and it could be about something bigger in the universe and calendars and all that stuff. But something is like, get it out now. Let's see if we can control what is happening. And I think what is happening is the most amazing awakening of all time. And it could get very scary, and it could get very, your anxiety can shoot through the roof. But I think this is just what you have to go through in order to get to the other side, which is like the end of this parasitic demonic group that's been running our world for the last hundreds of years or thousands of years. And I think it's over. And I think they know it, and they're trying to do whatever they can to control it or to act like they are in control of the change that is coming. And I think we win. God wins all the time. And I think they know it. And, people lose hope. And, I was like, the Klaus Schwab may be the most powerful guy in the world. I don't think he is. We know his name. He's probably not the most powerful. But even Klaus Schwab is a speck of dirt to the universe. You're not bigger than the universe. The universe has rules. God has laws. And if you don't follow these laws, the universe starts to bring the hammer down on you. And Klaus Schwab will get it too. They're all going to get it, because at the end of the day, it's all about love. And if you're not giving it away and helping others, you're taking it. And that's not how the universe works. So I have a lot of hope. I get very nervous about what's coming, but I'm all about chaos. I love it. Makes my job easier to talk about it. It's just we've been right more than we've been wrong, Jay. We wouldn't be doing our shows. Yeah, we wouldn't be doing this show. You wouldn't be doing this show. You wouldn't be on Alex's channel if you were wrong all the time. You're way more right than you're wrong if you're ever wrong. So that's why you're here, and that's why I think we're winning.
That brings me to what they want to bring in, which is, the full technocratic order. We've talked about that endlessly, but everybody's talking about what the event is going to be, and there's a lot. There was an email that went out to everybody on YouTube that you can't talk about an upcoming sensitive event. We had the House Intel Committee a couple of days ago say there's a big national security threat event, and we're all kind of batting around different possibilities. Is it COOF Part 2? Is it economic collapse, world war, EMP, fake flag? What do you think's coming? You've had a lot of great guests on talking about these topics. What's the likely scenarios in your mind, Sam?
I think you're going to see some kind of real chaos on our soil. I think that's coming. And I went on Joe Rogan and I've talked about it before everybody was paying attention to the immigration stuff. I was like, this is being done on purpose. This is chaos. They are losing LA, San Francisco, Philadelphia, New York, and Chicago. They cannot, the demons can't lose those cities and still be able to act like they've won anything. So they have to create maximum chaos, bro. And that's why I'm taking Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, learning to shoot a gun, starting a militia, getting it going, racking and rolling because, chaos is coming, dude. Buckle up, Buttercup. And, I just think people gotta prepare. That's it. I mean, something's coming. And what we've done to the Middle East, through weapons of mass destruction and all that lie, there's also energy and karma with that. And you can't do that to the rest of the world and treat people like that and not expect a karma blowback. And that might be why we're in a lot of chaos right now. But I also believe, dude, you hear Rogan talk about this a lot, about how the death of every empire, they start getting concerned with gender wars. Well, what I would respectfully push back against my friend on that is that is just a smokescreen. What's really happening is you start to see the gender stuff when it becomes more and more obvious that the elites are pilfering our natural given laws and wealth and are destroying our families. So once that starts to happen, okay, then they start sending out the trans soldiers and all that, and all the Antifas and the BLMs and all that crazy stuff in our schools. So we don't pay attention to the giant looting that is going on at the top, because you cannot have a structure if you don't have a base to that structure. Once the base is weak and the whole structure collapsed, and they don't want us to see that this is a controlled demolition. Somebody put this out the other day about if the Ukraine needs money, why don't they create a Federal Reserve and why don't they just print the money for it? But they'll never do it because then they can't destroy our monetary system and bring in socialism and ultimately martial law. That's what they want. So they have to destroy our dollar to get that going.
Yeah, I mean the only way to bring in the CBDC global currency that they want is to implode the existing system. We know that before COVID, a lot of the high-level people in the medical industry were talking about we need to blow up the existing system to justify bringing in the new system. So I kind of think that's what they're doing with the dollar, trying to destroy it. Maybe the answer is something like Bitcoin that's not centralized. Any of the centralized cryptos I think are dangerous. You talk about that on Cash Daddies quite a bit. Look, we're gonna go big false flags, big events in 2024. Is that the key reason for the big coming event in 2024, Sam? Do you think it's to do another election derailing like last time and make sure that it's going to be Big Mike? I mean, what do you think is going on with this election?
I mean, they are setting it up. They are letting you know. Now they have Jon Stewart openly talking about his age. He's too old. He shouldn't be going running. So they're setting it up. The question is, who's it going to be? Everyone's talking Big Mike. Everybody's talking Gavin Newsom. I mean, nobody's talking Hillary Clinton, who's real quiet, man, real quiet. I could see her just slipping out of nowhere to get any kind of bad energy her way, just step in at the last second before anyone could do anything. So we'll see. But that is 100% what's going on. They have to control these five major libertary, like libtard cities, so that they can control the perception that they won. Because if they lose those cities, there's no way they can lie to us that they won. They can't rig the election without those cities. So they have to cause major chaos, and it's going to happen. Now, if you got to take a look at what happened in New York recently, they had an election and they gave New York the decision to choose between a Democrat and someone who's obviously a dual citizen foreigner, okay? And they picked a Democrat. That's all they keep voting for are Democrats.
And you talking about Michelle Obama, dual citizen? She's man and woman.
No,
or what,
no,
what do you
I'm
mean
talking about they recently, I think it had a Senate. They got George Santos, his seat they gave up, and by the way, he's killing it on cameos right now. But they gave up his seat, and an Israeli woman ran for it who couldn't barely speak English, and a Democrat won. And now you're just voting for the same policy, people who make the same policies, who keep running your city into ground, because the theory of what a Republican could do is worse than what is actually happening on the ground, because most of these liberals are very high, rich. They're from an upper level of the financial world, and they are insulated from the results of their voting. And they'll never stop voting for that. We'll never save San Francisco or LA, Chicago, because rich kids keep voting against their father. Oh, the meanie. I can't get the meanie. And even though everyone's getting mugged and everyone's getting robbed and all these stores are closing, they're still going to keep voting Democrat because they can't vote for someone who might, their dad or their grandpa might lie. God forbid.
What about my wife, Michael? Sam, I don't know if you know about my wife, Michael, but she's going to be a good,
those are
good
some shoulders. You're the best, bro. You are the best impersonator. Yeah, those are some big shoulders and some fat hands, okay? Big Mike is, I believe that wholeheartedly. It's so funny because all we're getting told are that, and I have a lot of trans friends. I don't care, man. Live your life. Just leave kids alone. That's my whole thing. And if you study Obamacare, there were no of these centers to give kids sex changes before Obamacare. After Obamacare, over 100. So she's gonna get all the crap she can get. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, you brought this in, now you're gonna feel the consequences of your actions. And you've been telling me trans are unicorns. Why are you mad that I'm saying that we had a black unicorn in the White House? You should be celebrating it, because the truth is, you really don't think they're normal, and you don't think they're just trying to live their lives, and secretly you think they're mentally ill, and that's why you get upset if someone said, it's like when the old joke was like, oh you look like who's the big fat chick that was like singing forever,
Amy Schumer.
No, that's hilarious. But the big fat chick that was singing, you'd say, oh, you look like her, and chicks would get mad. Well, you were just telling me she was beautiful. What are you talking about? You get to find out the truth about them.
Lizzo, Tessa Holiday.
There we go, Lizzo, dude. If you're like, oh, you're so beautiful like Lizzo, chicks would lose their mind. But you're telling me she's beautiful and she should be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You're full of it. You're just virtual signaling. That's it.
Exactly. Now, you're a California dude, so a lot of people are talking about Gavin Newsom. He looks like he's had a horrible track record, and he's a communist demon, right?
The worst.
As a California,
he is the worst.
Gavin Newsom.
He's the worst. You have Bill Maher trying to call what he did to California dandruff. That's how detached from reality Bill Maher is. And so it's like what he did was absolutely destroy generational businesses, family businesses that would be passed down from generation to generation. We lost a lot of those. Suicides, drug overdose. And if you ever watched the The documentary, Capitalist Conspiracy, they break down exactly what's happening. It's called Pressure from Above, Pressure from Below. The reason they released all the criminals because they want crime to go up. And the reason they're not doing anything about the crime because they want to break your spirit. And that's why they arrest you when you try to defend yourself. They want you out of options, so you demand that daddy government come and steals all your God-given rights and becomes your nanny and can spy on you, enter your house whenever they want, tell you what you can or cannot do. And that is the goal of everything. And Gavin Newsom is pushing that agenda forward.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I've been coming to California at least once a year the last 4 or 5 years, and I've noticed a steady decline, especially pre and post COVID, right? I mean, it's
so bad.
Pretty rough. I mean, it's pretty rough. I mean, not everywhere, but a lot of places are pretty bad. And I always see California as kind of like, it's a military industrial complex test bed. It's like a test tube for the rest of the country 20 or 30 years later.
Yeah. And basically what happened was, it used to be California would set the trends and it would slowly move itself to the middle of the country. New York and California would push out all the new cool stuff. And now all the outlaws have left LA. All the outlaws. There's no outlaws left. Me, maybe. That's it. Everybody else has moved to Texas or Florida. And what you have here is just a bunch of rich kids who just don't want to like come off as anything other than woke. So I don't know how we're ever save LA. I don't know how we're going to save San Francisco when you only have rich kids who are voting all the time and they just cannot not vote for the party that's put them in this situation.
We got a few minutes left here as we close it out. You were on Rogan again not too long ago, a few months back. You were back on Rogan. That must have been pretty wild. That's a huge audience. I know you got some good exposure from that. Did you have a good conversation?
I always have good conversations with Rogan. It's almost too good a conversation. Sometimes I want back in the day I would like to go too deep, and I feel like I got a little weird there. But Joe Rogan is I love him. He's a good friend of mine. I've watched him go from this guy who was, doing Fear Factor to having this great, incredible podcast that is helping get information out to everybody. And I know the man, and he's a great man, and it's a blessing. And what's really crazy is when you see people clip up that interview, and everyone's like, "Dude, this guy called this guy called that," and
exactly,
it's great. And it's like it's a blessing to be on there. And I love it. I love talking to him, and I love everybody in Austin. I wish I was out there with them because that's my whole crew. They're all gone from LA. So, yeah, it's a blessing.
You called the chaos. Do you remember what other highlights you called in that interview?
Well, he's been doing a lot of stuff on Antarctica right now. And I think I got into a lot of spirituality struggle that is going on right now. And like my whole thing is like, if they can print up all the money, all right, they have all the power. Why are they doing any of this? And the only answer is it is a spiritual war, and they're trying to destroy us for their God, Moloch and Kronos and all these, whoever Satan you want to call it. That's what they're doing right now. That is their job. That is the deal. They made a deal with the devil. We only got a short time left. Am I going to get my impression or not?
Of you?
Yeah.
I'll do that if you have me on your podcast when I come out there March 15th. I'll do a whole Sam Tripoli rant for you. No, I gotta have something to save for you.
You're always open, man. You're always open to come on the show. I love it. I sometimes when I start talking about this, I get too serious. But I just love coming on your show. I loved watching you just start become, everyone learn about you and, see your exposure getting bigger and bigger. And the fact that you're on Alex's, channel is so amazing. And I love everybody at InfoWars. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Unbelievable. It is Sunday, 2005. We're going to be live for the next 7 hours. Thank you. I had to throw in Alex Jones. It is Sam Tripoli with me on the 4th hour of the